Hi, so I did my human neurophysiology lab presentation on the cranial nerves and IONM. I chose this topic because I felt like in order to really understand the rest of the class, it's important to have a good foundation about the cranial nerves. So in this presentation, I'll cover what is IONM. I'll cover the relevance of cranial nerves. I'll give a deeper dive into cranial nerves. Um, I'll provide a summary, and then I would open up the presentation to questions if that were applicable. So IONM stands for Intraoperative Neurophysiological Monitoring. It's used during surgeries to monitor the nervous system's function in real time. The goal of IONM is to protect the nervous system and its structures, especially during high-risk surgeries that might present a risk at damaging any nervous system structures. So generally, surgeries involving the spinal cord or the brain are surgeries in which you would need to monitor these structures. So now, where do cranial nerves come into this topic? So, first of all, we know that there's 12 cranial nerves, and they're each responsible for different sensory and motor functions that are all very important. So, understanding these nerves is crucial because it allows for proper monitoring during surgery. This is because nerves that are closer to the surgical site might be more susceptible to damage and might require closer monitoring. So it's important to know where they're located and then also where they innervate in order to understand where proper probe placement would be and in order to be able to monitor for damage. So there are 12 cranial nerves, or 12 pairs of cranial nerves for a total of 24 cranial nerves. And I've provided a picture of all 12. And as you can see, they're numbered from 1 through 12, um, kind of anterior to posteriorly, and also medially to laterally. So the first cranial nerve is the olfactory nerve. It's responsible for the sense of smell, and it transmits sensory information from the nasal cavity to the brain. So effects of of damage to this nerve could be um, anosmia, which is the loss of smell, and this can also affect taste perception as well. The second cranial nerve is the optic nerve, which transmits visual information from the retina of the eye to the brain, and it enables us to be able to perceive vision. It's responsible for processing light, color, and subject movement. If this nerve is damaged, then it can cause blindness or even partial vision loss in whichever eye is affected. The third cranial nerve is the oculomotor nerve, and it controls the eye movements, including the ability to raise the eyelid, move the eye up or down, adduct, which would be moving it inward, and then also it can regulate pupil constriction. Um, as we know, the pupil dilates and constricts depending on how much light is present, and that's controlled by this nerve. So, if this nerve were to be damaged, it can result in multiple conditions, and like I said, issues with pupil dilation, diplopia, which is double vision, and then also a drooping eyelid. The fourth cranial nerve is the trochlear nerve, which controls movements of the eye as well, but it allows for downward and inward movement of the eyeball. And damage to this nerve can cause difficulty with downward eye movement. Now, the trigeminal nerve, it has a lot of functions. So it has three divisions, which is why it's called the trigeminal nerve. And one is the ophthalmic, one's the maxillary, and one is the mandibular uh, part. So the ophthalmic division is responsible for sensations of the upper parts of the face, and so therefore damage can result in loss of sensation in the forehead, eyes, and nasal areas. And then the maxillary division transmits sensory information from more middle parts of the face. So damage can lead to loss of sensation in the mid face, and trigeminal neuralgia can also affect this branch of this nerve, and it can cause facial pain. The mandibular portion actually also has a motor function, and so it not only transmits sensory information from the parts of the face, but it also can control motor functions related to chewing. So now damage to this can cause loss of sensation, but it can damage to the motor part can impair the ability to chew. Now, the abducens nerve is a sixth nerve, and it controls the lateral rectus muscle, which deals with abducting the eye or moving it outward. And then damage to this can cause the inability to move the eye outward, as well as double vision and inward turning of the eye. The facial nerve is the seventh nerve, and it controls the muscles for facial expression, tear production, and also taste sensation. It also helps with salivation. Damage to this nerve can cause facial paralysis, loss of taste, and or reduced tear or saliva production. And the facial nerve is actually one of the most highly monitored nerves because of all of these really essential functions. Now, the vestibulocochlear nerve, it has two components as well, and it has the cochlear portion, which has to do with hearing, and the vestibular portion, which has to do with balance. So damage to the cochlear portion can cause hearing loss, and the damage to the vestibular portion can cause vertigo, dizziness, or other problems with balance and coordination. The glossopharyngeal nerve is also involved in taste sensation, and then it can also help with the processes of swallowing and salivation. So damage to this nerve can cause loss of taste, difficulty swallowing, and also a reduced gag reflex, which can be really important. The vagus nerve is the 10th nerve, and it has extensive functions, including control over the heart, lungs, and digestive tract. So damage to this nerve can cause loss of voice, and it can also affect the heart rate, which can lead to tachycardia, which is an abnormally high heart rate, or bradycardia, which is an abnormally low heart rate. And this is also one of the more highly monitored nerves, as you can see the functions are very important. Now we have the spinal accessory nerve, and this controls the muscles around the shoulder area, which allow for head rotation, shoulder shrugging, and shoulder elevation. And then damage to this can lead to weakness in the shoulder movements, and it can prevent the ability to turn the head from side to side. Now, the last nerve that we will be talking about is a hypoglossal nerve, and this controls muscles of the tongue, and it allows for movements that are necessary for speech, swallowing, and food manipulation. So damage to this nerve can cause weakness or paralysis of the tongue, and it can also cause the tongue to be asymmetrical depending on the side that's affected. So to summarize, understanding the functions of each cranial nerve helps us recognize possible damage, and it also helps us understand which may need to be more highly monitored depending on what surgery is happening. Thank you for your time.